The man who I was interviewing, let's call him John, wished to remain anonymous. I have recorded his answers in the written form, and I will be reading his interview in order to conceal his privacy. John remembers his childhood and he remembers his first Halloween. The neighbors were all farmers. They give out cookies, pies, pieces of pies. We didn't get candy, it was all homemade. We used to fill our bags with 10 to 15 pounds of goodies. We mainly got cupcakes because they were easy to make. Did you ever leave your doors open? No, we didn't leave our doors open. We locked our bikes. Once, I got my bike stolen. It was my first bike and I was really happy when I was riding it to the mall. I was goofy, I was happy. I came back from the mall and it was stolen. It was my first theft. I cried all the way back home. When I was 8 or 9 years old, the Clarks lived above us. They had 13 kids. They were hillbillies. They used to live in the mountains, cool Willie, in the cabin. They had no running water, electricity, or heating. And if they wanted to eat, then they had to go fish themselves. They had to fish and hunt. Kent was my best friend. He was one of the Clarks. He and me hang out together all the time. Did you ever have a sense of community in your neighborhood? I never had a sense of community. I didn't know much about the people in my neighborhood. Would you like to live in a community? I think everybody would, but you can't trust people. People are bad. I trust my friends, family, my neighbors, and that's about it. Did you feel that not growing up Mormon might have distanced you from the other members in your community? I didn't even know what the Mormons were. When you're a kid, you don't care about things like that. I first started going to church as a little kid. I joined because of Ken. He said that there was food. He told me that there was food and that the teacher's husband flies airplanes and we could get on an airplane and go for a ride. He brought me to the classroom and the teacher took my name. It was just like school, just like fun school. We went for a couple of weeks and then he took us for a plane ride. The teacher's husband stole the plane. He got very high in the air, turned off the motor and dived directly in the ground. It was very scary. I never wanted to go for a plane ride ever again. I still went to school to eat food. I went for a short time before they kicked me out. I don't remember for what. I didn't do anything. The bishop of the church also was a Cub Scout leader, and I was not allowed on his tractor rides that he took other boys on. Soon, after a couple of weeks, he stopped allowing me to come to the Boy Scout outings, and then he kicked me out. It's funny. Our neighbors were nice, but when I got kicked out of the church, they became mean. They never said hello to me, to us, my family, or anything. I never spoke to them again as well. I never had a community. I guess I would like to live in a community, but it sure would not be my community. Soon afterward, Dad bought a new house and we moved away. That is where I met another bishop. He lived across the house from us. Once I was playing with ball and it rolled to his front yard. He was working in his garden, so he stood up, picked the ball, and he started coming over to the house. I thought he was going to give the ball back to my dad, but he came to the house and he threw the ball as high as he could all the way into the trailer park next to us. I heard it bounce off the roof. And then he just walked off. Later we found out that he was a bishop. The guy was a real prick. So Mormons can tell me that they're nice. I have lived with them. Was your Halloween in your new street as good and as painful as in your old street? Here it was candy, hard candy, regular candy. Once I got an English bean in my candy. My dad called the cops. That was my last trick-or-treating. Did you have an experience with the nicer Mormons? Well, another bishop moved in. He seemed like a nice guy until he sexually abused his 2 daughters. He went to jail or prison. The daughters got into drugs, lots of sex and drugs. All the kids were saying that. And then I partially saw it. It sounds like a horrible story. Tell me about your friends. My new friends I made were Indian, Kenny, Fat Kenny, and James, a black kid. We were all outcasts. We all hang out together. I learned a lot of Indian culture that was not in the books. I learned that Christopher Columbus was not a hero. I learned that Thanksgiving dinner was a dinner after settlers killed many Indians and they were celebrating it. The Delaware family took me in. They fed me, I could go there and eat, they treated me like my family. They were nice people. They were my community, my friends, not the neighborhood or geographically established community. What happened? Well, we grew up and grew apart and we went our different ways. I met Jack, my best friend, when I was in grade school, when I was still friends with Delaware. I met him in 5th or 6th grade. We just became best friends. Everything we did was trouble. We just acted like a bunch of idiot adolescents. We put girls, about 10 or 12 of them, against the fence in our school and we snowballed them. It backfired. They went to the teachers and the teachers lined us up and the girls threw snowballs at us. They were enjoying it. They had a good old time. So did we. The girls were screaming. We had lots of fun. There was a bully in our school. He should have already been finishing junior high, but he was still in 5th or 6th grade, and he beat up a lot of kids. He was kicked out of school later and put in mental hospital. Did you live in a community? There never was a community. The modern society breeds people to be self-sufficient. Community is where you need other people to survive. And now you don't need anybody. But if we live in the woods and we had to hunt or fish, then yes, there would have to be a community. Did you ever feel like you were discriminated because you were not Mormon? Yes, at times. I worked in the auto shop, and the boss, who was always cutting my check specs, messing up my hours. And he was the only one I was doing that too. Everybody else was white and Mormon. When I was growing up, the entire street was white. I was white, but not white, a little bit brown. I feel like I was being discriminated. A lot of jobs that didn't hire me that I was qualified for. Manual jobs. Was it your attitude? No, I had a good attitude. I think it was the skin color. Do you or did you ever had a passion? I was fascinated by cars. How does it go down the hill? How does it work? I could not stop reading. I would read every book on cars I would find. How they are built, how they are manufactured. I was a self-taught mechanic. I taught myself so well that when I went to college, I knew everything that the teachers were teaching and they got mad. I would stumble into class 10 to 15 minutes late on the test day. The teacher would slap a task on my desk. I would mark the correct answers as fast as I could and then leave. The teachers got mad. What do you think of Utah as a whole? I like Utah. It's beautiful. But I think the Mormons are rude, they lie, and they hide behind their religion. What would you say is your contribution to your community? My family, my little house, where I live with my wife and raise 5 kids, my friends, the non-religious type who have been with me for many years. Community defines a group of people, but so does a group of people or even 1 or 2 individuals define a community. John might not fit in the usual definition of community, but his relationship with his family and his friends are a community. Different communities do different things. Some communities grow food, some mine gold, and some, like John, simply live, raising good citizens or working, truck driving and bringing oranges from California to Utah. My job. I drive 5 days out of the week around Western USA. I bring goods, medicine, and clothes to different stores. I think your job is actually quite important, John. Since we are such a globalized nation, we get our food from everywhere, Mexico, California, Canada. And we need some people, just like you, to transport those things from far away to local stores. I think his job is a lot more important than he thinks. He has been doing his job for many years, and I don't think he realizes how important truck driving is. The truck driving physically links many communities together by driving from one road to another. Many people think of truck drivers as almost half-wits, but truck driver population is very important, delivering things all over the country. John has isolated himself from the big Utah communities, his neighborhood, Mormon church, but in that isolation he found his true communities, his family, his friends, and his job.